It is time, folks, for this week's main event, and it's one that we're looking forward to. Who are the Bluebloods in women's college hoops? Again, promised that we'd have some college football references in the spirit of week one of the college football season. We love to talk about those Bluebloods in college football, men's basketball too, since we are recording this on Monday, September 1st. And North Carolina football plays tonight in front of a sold-out Kenan Stadium. So, interesting. Speaking of Blue Bloods, or maybe not. So, Mitch, let's get right to it. UConn, we're just going to put them off to the side. UConn is obviously a blue blood of the sport. South Carolina, and this is where kind of the conversation begins to maybe split. Is South Carolina a blue blood, or can I introduce a new term to the lexicon, a new blood? Because that is a term on the men's basketball side as an AP voter that we use quite often with regards to Gonzaga. Villanova's in an interesting kind of gray area, given that they did have success in the 1980s, but then obviously have had a resurgence in the 2000s under Jay Wright. You look at, in that case, when the new blood term really started, that was back in the late 2010s. And so that was when Leonard Hamilton and Florida State were starting to put things together and were they considered a new blood. And so we could go on down the line of that gray area. For you, though, South Carolina, given that they did not win a national title until 2017, given that it wasn't until Dawn Staley arrived, which was still within the last 15 years, 20 years, do you view them as a blue blood of the sport?
Yes, I do now.
Okay.
I think that because they have multiple national titles, because if you look at like a 10-year span since 2015, they've been to 7 Final Fours. I think you can make the case that since they won their first national title in 2017, no other program in the country has been as successful as them. From 2020 through 2024, they went 167-9, the best winning percentage in the country over that stretch. So I think it took Dawn a little while to build it up, and now that it has been sustained, and they are one of the sport's Death Stars. So I wrote about Blue Bloods over at SB Nation last week just to kind of do some fun evergreen off-season content. So I came up with 7 schools.
Okay.
So
let's hit the 7 then. As opposed to me just throwing out names, let's do the 7.
How about I'll read you my list and let me know if you think there's
Or can I try to hit your 7? I haven't read the article yet. Can I try to hit the 7?
Oh, sure. Yeah, if you can guess. Let's go.
Okay, so UConn, South Carolina.
And South Carolina. You got 2. Yep.
Okay, so for the next 5. Notre Dame?
Yes.
Okay. Baylor?
Yes.
Okay. 2 for 2. The pressure is on. USC?
No.
Okay. LSU?
No.
Did you put Iowa in?
No.
Okay, interesting. All right, give us the other 3 then, Mitch.
Okay, so we have UConn, South Carolina, Baylor, Tennessee.
Tennessee, duh. Yep.
Stanford.
Okay.
Notre Dame, you mentioned.
Yep.
And the final school is Maryland.
Oh.
Okay, so
you did say C. Viv Stringer off the top of today's show, so I do want to note that I was gonna go with another very heralded Big Ten program in Rutgers. Obviously the Big Ten's premier program. I'm saying that in jest, folks. With all due respect to Rutgers, who I think they'll be competitive. But point being, yes, Maryland, more known for its time in the ACC. Although to that end, Brenda Fries has certainly had success, even if it hasn't been national titles here in the 2020s.
Yeah. So I think, for men's basketball, like you mentioned, we kind of have a decent idea in our mind of who the Blue Bloods are. And I think in women's basketball, it's UConn and Tennessee and Stanford, and then you're trying to kind of figure out who else is in that group. So I came up with a very unscientific and completely arbitrary set of rules to find out who the Blue Bloods were. So my criteria were that the team to be considered, you needed to have at least one NCAA national championship. So that cut out Duke, Iowa, NC State, Louisville, teams like that. I also stipulated the teams needed to be in the top 30 in all-time winning percentage. South Carolina, for what it's worth, just made the cut here. They are 30th. because of those pre-Dawn Staley years. They were a little bit rough. But also not making the cut were former national champions Texas Tech, Purdue, and Texas A&M. Then I wanted to make sure we were valuing kind of success in the modern era, and in sort of a like, what have you done for me lately kind of way, because like when we talk about the Blue Bloods on the men's side, and someone brings up Indiana, I'm just kind of like, okay,
I was going to say Louisiana Tech on the women's side, but yeah, you could go, or Old Dominion, but you can go there.
Well, we'll get to both of those. So, yeah, so the couple of ways I figured that out was if a team has missed 5 consecutive NCAA tournaments, obviously excluding the COVID year of 2020, within the last 15 years, they are not a Blue Blood. So farewell to former multiple-time national champs, Old Dominion, Louisiana Tech, and USC. So that's what did USC in. But I do think I'll get to my other criteria in a second for USC and some of these other teams. There's a way back into the conversation, right? Like USC goes out and wins the national title this year. Okay, well now they have 3, and it's kind of hard to argue with that. My other criteria was for that kind of success in the modern era. In the last 15 years, if a team went 5 consecutive seasons without finishing the year ranked in the AP Top 25 poll, they are not a Blue Blood. So that got rid of North Carolina, LSU, and Texas. Because those pre-Kim Mulkey years, like that era, basically the 2010s, where you're like post-Simone Augustus, but pre-Kim Mulkey still, not great for LSU. I do think that they are in progress of working their way back into Blue Blood status, though. Obviously, they have their national title now. Went to all those Final Fours in the 2000s. The last bit of criteria that I had was to retain Blue Blood status, a team has had to have been to multiple Final Fours within the past 15 years or won at least one of its national titles within the past 20 years. And my note on that was, you're safe for now, Tennessee and Maryland, but the clock is ticking.
Kelly Kim, I hope you heard that, because
got to get to a Final Four.
They're coming for you, which we did predict on this podcast, both of us, in our way too early Final Fours, that both of those squads, and that was granted prior to the Gracie Merkel untransfer back to Penn State, that we both are confident that Tennessee and or Maryland could both get to that Final Four. I like your list, Mitch. I'm biased, but ultimately Iowa's such an interesting one because for many newcomers to the women's basketball space, they think, oh, well, it's Iowa. Of course, they've been one of the better teams the last 5 years, and you can even go past Caitlin Clark's tenure to when Megan Gustafson was there. I, of course, was there the last 2 years that they went to the WNIT in 2016 and 2017. They made the tournament in 2018. In 15, they went to the Sweet 16 with Sam Logic and Bethany Doolittle. For me, the reason that I might introduce them into the conversation, but to that point, then you'd want to include Purdue, who did win the 1999 national title, and Iowa's never won a national title, from the perspective of, again, paying homage to C. Vivian Stringer and what she did in the 80s at Iowa, the early 90s, filling Carver Hawkeye Arena, what Dr. Christine Grant did as the women's athletic director at Iowa, because of course back then they had 2, and then she became the overall athletic director. But again, I'm biased, so that's why I would have included them. But a point being, like, you have to win a national title to be considered for this, and there's obviously a ton of great talent to pick from. And Aaliyah Chavez is Oklahoma. A new blood, perhaps. And maybe that's the conversation too. It's the new bloods.
Yeah. I think Iowa, and you could probably put NC State into this category as well because of the history with K.Al. And now they've been to another Final Four with Westmore, among the best programs that have never won a national title. I think everybody kind of in that group that I mentioned, Duke has a bunch of Final Fours to its name. Louisville now, 15 plus years of sustained success under Jeff Walls. There's definitely a path forward. I think like eye test wise for me, if I just kind of tossed my criteria that I made up out the window, I think USC and LSU are the 2 that seem the most blue bloody to me that aren't in my club.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to deal with who's got banners and who doesn't, but
Hmm.
also the talent you've put into the WNBA, the
Yeah.
coaches that you've had. I liked this from our friend Joe Ovius, and not to get off topic before we get to making money with Mitch, but with regards to, since we have some folks in the triangle listening, with regards to Hubert Davis and his standing at the University of North Carolina, Joe said on the Eye on College Basketball podcast, if you're North Carolina and you believe you are a blue blood, then that should mean you have a top 5 coach in the sport right now. And do North Carolina men's basketball fans feel like they have a top 5 coach right now? To the point, those 7 teams we just listed on the women's side, Baylor notwithstanding, because I'm going to give them a little bit of grace given they're still in the post Kim Mulkey era. But I would argue, certainly UConn and South Carolina have top 5 coaches in the game. I know this is unfair because there's 7 schools that we listed. Maryland, I don't know if Brenda's top 5, but I think she's top 10. Easy.
Yeah, I think if you're Maryland, you're very happy to still have Brenda Freeze around.
Killa Kim Caldwell is approaching, I would say, the top 15, top 10, if she's not there already. Then we've got Stanford, again, Grace, post Tara Vanderveer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to question you. And then we had, remind me again, our other 2.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Well, I'd like to believe Niele is a top 5 coach. I'd like to believe Niele is a top 5 recruiter. This year is going to tell me a lot. And then our final school was
UConn, Tennessee, Stanford, South Carolina, Notre Dame, Maryland, Baylor.
Baylor, I said I give them some grace.
Yeah.
LSU,
I think
but to the point, I like Joe's point of like, if you're a blue blood, then you shouldn't be satisfied unless you have a top 5 coach in your purview in the sport. And I think of those 7 schools you listed outside of the 2 that are in the post legend era.
Yeah.
I think that you could make the argument that they feel they have a top 5, top 10, top 15 coach in the sport.
Yeah. I think Baylor fans probably feel pretty good about Nikki Collin. She is 102-36 since taking over for Kim Mulkey, which is a 73% winning percentage. They've been to the NCAA tournament, in consecutive years, and she's got things rolling. I think they feel okay about, her right now. I would say of the programs that I just mentioned, I think the program whose fan base is maybe feeling the most shaky about their head coach might be our friends in South Bend.
Not Stanford.
I think the Stanford fans are willing to give Kate pay. It has only been 1 year. Last year was not great. They do have some recruits coming in. I think this is going to be a really, really interesting year for Notre Dame, just in terms of how are they going to manage with the roster that they have? I think we're really about to find out how good of a coach Niele Ivey is. Yes. We're also going to find out if Hannah Hidalgo has that Russell Westbrook ability in her to just do it all. And we're going to find out how patient everybody in South Bend is, because I'm not optimistic about how things are going to go for the Fighting Irish this season.
That is this week's main event. If you have a thought on this, please comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, because I know we definitely ruffled some feathers with this week's main event and who are the Blue Bloods of women's college basketball.